Welcome, everybody, to the Beer and Skittles podcast. On this episode, we're going to talk about some anime live action news that has come out recently. We're going to take a look at some anime adaptations that have been done already in live action, some anime that are also in the works that are supposed to be coming out at some point, what we'd like to see, what might work, what might not work. So to start everything off, Naruto is getting a live action series. There's new news on that. Apparently, it's been in development for about 10 years now. But it did get some new news recently. It will be moving forward, I think, due to the success of the One Piece show on Netflix.
Which
But
I think
Variety,
it only makes sense. I mean, not
yeah,
that I think it makes sense because anime adaptations, I think so far, except for One Piece, have kind of sucked. But why hasn't one of the big three gotten an adaptation? So I think it's because they did Dragon Ball how long ago, and it took them so long to get back into anime adaptations. It took so long for them to then do One Piece. Surprised that Naruto honestly didn't even come before One Piece. So I'm sure also after that, it's not even too far before you get Bleach or something. Like all those major animes are probably going to be getting them after the success of One Piece.
I think what we need to touch on too with One Piece is the fact that they worked with the creator on that. Oda worked directly with the team to make that show, and I think that's important. Oda gave his blessing for the casting of Luffy. He gave his blessing on the cast, and he helped work on the scripts. And when they made changes to the story to kind of streamline things and the introduction of some characters, like Kobe's character, a little earlier in the live action, it was all done with Oda's blessing. And I
Well, you
think
definitely
that's
have to do all that shifting around, and it's good as a creator, to also know when things have to be done to fit different formats and whatnot. Because if you fit the original format of One Piece, all those characters don't even come together until 100 episodes in.
yeah.
You don't have the time to do that in a market where you're trying to catch people's attention quickly.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
anime's been known for people to stick around for their hopefulness. Live action really isn't. Something's bad, even for an
Well, it's
episode, people
also
tend to abandon it,
it's
especially
also
in
the
this day and
length.
age.
It's the length as well. Anime episodes are about 22 to 24 minutes typically per episode.
Mm.
The One Piece episodes are an hour, so you're getting more story per episode now as well.
Mm.
So there's that. Naruto's series has a screenwriter attached. That's the big news. Tasha Hu is set to pen the series. Recent credits include a comic book, Red Sonja, and an animated series based on Tomb Raider. I think, again, it's tricky. It's like you said, it's very tricky when doing these adaptations. And we've seen it done where you get movies or shows where they do work with the original creator of said series, and this is not the best example just because of who it is, but J.K. Rowling has worked with Warner Brothers for Harry Potter, and her personal opinions aside, that is somebody who has worked very closely with the production team and stuff like that. She penned the script. She was the screenwriter on the last two movies for Fantastic Beast. So she was heavily involved in those. So it can be done, and I think there's something to say. It's tricky, right? You come in, you want to do an adaptation as a director, as a writer, and you're trying to also make the story yours, right? So you kind of want to step away from the original creator in a way, so you can still make it yours, but you got to respect the source material, especially when it comes to something as popular and as loved as Naruto. So working with Kishimoto on this story, I think, is very important, especially when it comes to casting these characters.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing that it can it can really go either way because it's not a guarantee that it's a success. I mean, we can look at Ghost in the Shell, and that doesn't mean that it's automatic success. That you, especially if you're just talking about casting, because somebody can
Yeah.
look apart, but that doesn't mean your script's going to match what people want to see from what they saw before. I mean,
Oh, that's 100%
you
true.
need. I think you need somebody that worked on the project, the original project, from start to finish. I mean, without like, because when you're just doing casting, I mean, someone can look the part, but I mean, that doesn't mean that the project's going to turn out how you want. I mean, things go sideways like that all
I
the
think
time.
I think, fan casting is one thing, and even James Gunn recently talked about this when for casting for like Superman and for the DC movies. And he's like, yeah, I look at fan casting occasionally, when we're looking at all the different things. He goes, but I don't know that it's ever, he goes, and some of it's interesting. He goes, but I don't think it's ever led to me casting a person.
Well,
Um,
when you always think about it too, like you almost never really get your fan cast. But I think it's also on purpose from a studio standpoint where you don't want to give somebody the obvious. When you give
well, and I
somebody
think
that's typecasted into a certain role and that's the fan cast that everybody wants, it's like, am I just going to give you like it's too obvious and
Bryan
you're just going to get
Cranston,
something predictable.
Bryan Cranston said during an interview once, because they asked him about like Lex Luthor and stuff, and he's like, yeah, it's unoriginal. It's unoriginal casting. They look at him as, oh, he played Walter White in Breaking Bad. He plays a really good bad guy. Make him this bald supervillain, and it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I can do it, but it's uninspired. You know, let somebody else do it that can bring something new and try something new. That you know,
Yeah, it's a 50-50 thing where I think people do it because one giving giving you what you think you want isn't going to be the best move always, but also I think it's an ego thing where we talk about in the industry all the time where people want to change stories, people want to change castings, people want to do this to
yep,
show that like, oh, I picked them, I discovered them, I did this.
yeah,
So it's also part of it that even if it's, like, oh, like this guy's would yeah, obviously be a great cast, but then I don't really get the credit for that. That's
yeah.
also I think a factor that comes into it because there's a lot of egos in the
But
industry.
I think it's like you said. I mean, you can, if we found somebody that looks exactly like Naruto, like that's the other thing. People they're looking at casting of, oh well, this person looks like that character naturally.
Hmm.
Hey,
Yeah,
makeup,
with this hair,
all
makeup,
this
all that
stuff
stuff,
like
and
that can
also you always
change.
get the most like mainstream person to be in it. I mean,
Yeah,
like I don't like people can have their debates about whatever, but Tom Holland before Spider Man wasn't a mainstream actor.
yeah.
I mean, I remember when
And
we first heard the announcement, we were making fun of him, calling him little shit chin because
I was not on board with, and honestly, the casting of Tom Holland as Spider Man changed when Civil War came out. I was not on board with it at all. I was like, but you also know I loved Andrew. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, no, fuck this movie. I don't want to. I don't care. They can keep their new Spider-Man. I don't need that shit. And then it came out, and I was like, okay, I'm sold. I do not second guess Marvel casting anymore. When they turn around and they're like, and people do it all the time, but I'll tell you what, I couldn't really tell you a casting I hate from the MCU.
no,
They
I
all
don't think
kind
I've.
of like,
uh,
I have issues story wise. I have issues, with other things that they might do, but casting, I think everybody kind of brings their A game and they deliver.
Yeah, I'd say that's right. I'm trying to think now. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I've had a casting that I've complained about. Um, I'm
Yeah, I
trying to
just,
think. That's an interesting one. Yeah, no, I don't think I have any complaints for casting when it comes to Marvel movies. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
sometimes the unpredictable cast because you also don't see what these people see in this when they do screen tests and when they do all this
it's,
stuff and when they're on the
and you
audition
know what?
process. Like, because
That's
also think
something, that's
Batman.
something too. People don't realize, listen, it's auditions. And sometimes I know you audition bad. It happens.
And
But
also, there's certain ways that they want to go with the role. Like, okay, somebody might have been great as Spider Man, maybe not this Spider Man that they're
that they're trying
doing.
to do. There's
So, like,
also
it's
chemistry tests.
Oh
which are
yeah.
also a big part of it. Listen, you're a part of a franchise. You need to test against your other castmates, the other people they're casting. And if you don't vibe, if you don't mesh, you might not get the part. Because, yeah, okay, you're great as this character, but you don't work well with these other people that we're casting. And we need somebody that can do it all. There's a lot that goes into this. So, do I have an idea of who the hell you cast as Naruto? Absolutely not. I think it is a. I think even with Luffy, I think it's hard to cast these characters in live action.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you've been with a character for so long, like it can get real nitpicky as to who you want there. Like these are characters that have stood the test of time for ages and ages, and it's not like comic books either, where you're getting different variations of character every
Yep.
5 years. It's the same character.
And
So
these characters it's the same with comic book characters. They're important to people. People are attached to these
yeah,
characters, so it does become hard. And because of our attachment to characters that we love, um, it's it's a very tricky line to walk.
yeah,
I don't
especially
envy.
also with anime being so exaggerated in the way that it delivers. It's not easy to say that somebody could just pick up the character of Naruto because the character of Naruto is also going to get adjusted for live action. I mean, anime in itself is such an exaggerated art form. Like everything, facial expressions are exaggerated. Character, voice, like how they enunciate, how they talk, everything is so exaggerated because that's just how they
But you know what?
do
I will
things.
say it. And I think we've kind of moved away from this. Hollywood has kind of changed its view on it, and I think it's because of just the things that are now in pop culture. With it being video games, anime, this nerdy stuff is now very popular.
Mm.
The One Piece live action kind of leaned into the cheesiness and the corniness, and we've seen that even in the Marvel movies. We've seen it in a lot of stuff where it's like we're gonna lean into this because it is cheesy, it is corny, it is campy, but that doesn't make it bad.
No,
There's a
it doesn't make it bad in any sense of the word. It just there's a fine line between where you're
yes,
accurate and where you're so accurate that it looks bad. So like
ev-
you can think about like we talked about it, I think recently Mysterio in the MCU is so
the
corny, such a
fishbowl design.
terrible look
Yeah,
that but they did it in such a way that it looks good. Aquaman was such a terrible look. Everybody
that
made fun of the
gold
costume
costume,
forever, but they did it in a way that
and
it's
it looks awesome.
accurate but looks great because of realism. But you can go so far, which it's not bad because of the timing, because of what they're doing. But if you're talking about like, oh, so accurate, Adam West Batman, so
Yeah,
accurate for the time of Batman. You look at it, it doesn't look great now. I mean, again, give it the credit for the time and all that it
oh
was,
yeah,
but you go too much for accuracy and it looks terrible. You go far in the other direction, everybody's going to complain because that's nothing alike. So
yeah.
it's a fine line, and I don't think it's easy to do by any standard.
And
Um,
I think there's ways like you can even pay homage to these things in a way that can be exciting for fans that notice, like they did it in WandaVision, the Halloween episode where Wanda and Vision are in their like
in their costume,
comic
yeah,
accurate costumes, but they do look cheap. But that was the point. They were like
yeah.
homemade Halloween costumes, and it was cool. It was a lot of fun. Um, I do think you can like even the exaggeration of anime, like you said, because in animation you can have these exaggerated emotions that you're not going to scream or cry that way in real life, but in animation it doesn't pull you out, and it doesn't you're not like, oh, that's not believable.
No, but so you need to find somebody that can pull doing something other than that while still feeling true to the character. Because you
Yes,
can't do it in live
absolutely.
action, but you need to make people feel the same way as that exaggeration does. So again,
And they
finding
make
a
it work.
casting for them is terrible.
They made
Is
it work in One
awful.
Piece.
Yeah,
Every time he introduces himself, I am Monkey D. Luffy, and I will be the king of the pirate. He's screaming and he's all excited and he's so animated, and it's extremely exaggerated. But it's like, but
it
it's
works in
in
that
character.
scenario.
It's in character. It's not the world we're in. It makes sense. It's just, yeah, okay, cool. I buy it. I'm not. I didn't get pulled out of this. I'm on board. Um, I One Piece also being successful, it also being arguably the biggest shonen out there is a good sign. And hopefully they do take some lessons and some notes from that production for Naruto and for some of the other animes that are in production to get
Yeah,
live
I
action.
mean, we look at the ones from the past that aren't One Piece, and not all of them I think are terrible, but I think a lot of, or not even all the time, I don't think castings are terrible either, but I think it's the deviations from the
Mm,
scripts that really take people out of it.
I think what
Um,
also hurts is so, and this is and it's tough, right? Anime is a Japanese thing. It's art. It's mangas are most, you know, anime that are based on Japanese manga, they take place in Japan for the most part. One Piece does not, right? One Piece is this fictional world.
that makes
So,
your castings different.
correct.
However, but I also think there's a give and take to this because also fan bases love to cast every anime as Asian,
I
and
mean,
every
now,
character is Asian, and that's really hard to do with a lot of different animes. Like, and you have to go for accuracy. When you have an Asian character that is explicitly told and is Asian, make
correct.
them Asian. If they look Asian, if they're told they're Asian, if the place is in Japan and they have dark
Which
hair and they have like
you run into that issue
the
that I had with Death Note. They changed the setting so that they could change the cast, right?
mhm.
And I'm like, I don't, it doesn't work for me, you know? Like,
Mm.
and Death Note is such a good. Now, for Ryuk, they cast Willem Dafoe, right? Willem
Um,
Dafoe played Ryuk, but it's all CGI'd. It wasn't even like really
yeah,
him. It's all his
the
voice and everything. It's stuff like that I think is fine. Um, another Attack on Titan that's in development. It's supposed to be getting a live action.
it's all European except for two
It's mostly
characters.
European, except for Mikasa, Levi, right?
Mm.
You
Yep.
have to cast them as Japanese, right? Or Asian descent. Now you can the other cat, but it takes place in a fictional world. It's not the real world. You get into um,
Well, that's what I'm saying. A lot of animes happen in a fictional world, but I think there is a very obvious interpretation of a character that
correct
you can use, like
Naruto.
Seven Deadly Sins. I
Okay,
think
yeah,
fictional world. I
mm-hmm.
think you can distinctively say what a lot of those characters are European. I think
Yeah,
Bond, I think seems like an Asian character to me. How he's
yeah,
designed, like the shape of his face, the way his hair moves compared to everybody else's, it seems different and seems purposeful in the way that a lot of other people are designed in other animes that are shown to be Asian. I
yep,
mean, I think there's obvious cues to what someone's racial diversity is, other than just the color of their skin, because that's just so obvious that nobody can deny it. But
yeah.
they try to change it in other aspects when it comes to different races.
So the other major anime that is getting a live action from Hollywood, because again, a lot of these anime series have gotten live actions in Japan,
Mm,
um, where they are casting accurately. The downside to those movies is usually the budget isn't there, so the special effects suffer. Um, so with My Hero, it is explicitly takes place in Japan. It is our
mm.
world. You're not, you shouldn't be whitewashing most of that cast. Not all of that cast looks human though. So
That's
I
true.
I can see casting for some of these characters that is outside of um you know, casting everybody to be of Asian descent, even though I get it, it takes place in Japan, but uh Cementos, the teacher, who is just a big
Yeah, yeah.
cement block, you know, or the principal, who is an animal, you know? Like I can see some other castings being done. But
And I also don't think it's a
don't pull a
total
Dragon
point.
Ball
Yeah, I
where
also
like
think it's a total point where some of these people could be changed. But if you're just going to like, if mostly Japanese cast should at least be mostly Japanese.
but
Like,
let's not change them just for the sake of changing them. Like
no,
what's
but
the
I do
reason
think
for the
there's certain
change?
characters where it'd be easier to find a white actor to play than it would, because like how many Japanese people do you find with blonde hair?
Yeah, but so what are you
Not,
talking about? Changing Bakugo? Absolutely not.
no, not Bakugo. I think Bakugo definitely looks Japanese. All Might. I don't think All Might looks all
Oh, I
that
could, yeah, and,
Japanese.
I could see,
Or like even maybe Uravity, I don't think looks all that
I
Japanese. Where I
could
think it could
see,
work either way.
I could see All Might for sure. Yeah, I
No,
think
no,
that,
Bakugo, I definitely think looks like a Japanese character. I don't think there's any way
yeah,
around that.
there's no way around that. And like, but I can see Hollywood pulling a Dragon Ball Z where they cast a white guy and it's like, why is this guy playing Goku?
Yeah, yeah. To me, it doesn't matter whether your anime is mostly white, mostly Asian, mostly whatever. I think it's more important that you stay true to what it is. Don't make white characters Asian because you want diversity, and don't make Asian characters white because you want your job to be easier.
Absolutely.
Either way.
I think there are, like you said, there is ways of casting these people. And if you did other, there are other series that are fictional worlds. Soul Eater is another one that, it's a fictional world. And I could see some of these characters not explicitly being Asian. But then the other major adaptation that's supposed to be coming out, it's actually on hold right now, is Akira. And Akira is a fantastic anime. It's a fantastic story. It's super dark, but it explicitly takes place in Japan. All of the characters are Japanese, so cast it as such. Um, Taika is attached to that movie. And he did say that he does plan on casting, and he actually wants to cast a lot of like unknown, especially because the characters are so young. He wants to cast more unknown people to play these characters, and I think that's great. Um, that movie's on hold because he was doing Thor, and now he's doing his Star Wars project. So Akira is currently on hold, but
I mean, that one should
I
be
think,
interesting. You also mentioned earlier about Attack on Titan being a another one that'll be getting a live action project unannounced as to what it exactly is. No real further
yeah,
details, deadlines, anything, but something that's in the talks. And I think it's an interesting one.
yeah,
I think it's interesting because Attack on Titan blew up in a certain way that animes of its style do not. I mean, it's so gory and dark and gritty, and it's such a weird and obscure storyline that not everybody can wrap their heads around it. The fact that it got so big, I think, is almost an anomaly. I love
it's
Attack on
super
Titan.
dark.
Don't
I
get me
mean,
wrong; it's like in my top five. But I know, like, our brother loves anime. Our brother does not like Attack on Titan because of how gory it
he
is.
does not like the gore. Yeah, he still watches
And
it.
yeah, but so it's a great story and everything about it's so great. But I think because of how niche it is, it's amazing that it got so big. You
I think
know?
you're right. I think a lot of the other dark animes that are popular, especially amongst the anime community, people they love them, especially the fan bases for them,
Mm-hmm.
that do love these series that I'm going to mention. But also just within the anime community, they recognize the impact and just you know what it's brought to anime. Devilman, especially the newer series that was done on Netflix, Devilman Crybaby, which
Oh,
is super
beautiful,
dark. I do not
beautiful.
recommend to most people unless they're into like super gory. It's also very trippy
No,
because of the
but
colors.
also what I will say is that I do think that Attack on Titan is gorier than Devilman Crybaby, for the reason that all of the colors that it uses, sometimes your blood isn't red in that show. So even though like there's some grotesque things happening, it doesn't seem as real as when this
Yeah,
giant as
because of the
person is
style of it.
chomping on another person. So
Yeah,
like the art style isn't as realistic, and they do a lot more playing with colors. So like a lot of those contrasts aren't as grotesque, I think, as Attack on Titan in reality.
Evangelion is another one that's super dark, um, and it is just as far as like gore goes, it has that, but then also it's a mind fuck of a series as well. Um, and Evangelion would be awesome to get in live action as well. I could see you casting some of those characters as not as not Japanese or Asian because some of those characters are from other countries, or they're mixed in the series. But that one is super dark. It's super gory. Evangelion is very well respected in the anime community, for what it did, for the story it told. You really wouldn't have Attack on Titan today without
Hmm.
like Devilman having been written, decades prior, or Evangelion coming out. Um, but I think you're right. Attack on Titan has a popularity level that's just
Yeah, it's
it's
above and beyond of what you would expect for what it was. Not that it could
yeah
never have been popular, but to the extent to where like it is like for animes that are talked about right now, it's definitely at least in the top 5 of things that are being talked about. Like Jujutsu Kaisen, um, Demon Slayer. I don't really know anyone else that's getting talked about as much as Attack on Titan
yeah no, it's
in this
extremely
day and
popular.
age.
Um,
But so I think it's an interesting way because I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's basically a bunch of giant, almost people-looking monsters that come in and attack and eat people that are
yep,
hidden behind walls. So one, the budget for it would have to be ginormous. The setting in itself, it's like
but not
walls
necessarily,
and
not necessarily
castles.
because
Like,
you know what? I could see get the team that does the Godzilla and Kong movies to do Attack on Titan.
yeah, I mean, I think that's it's an easy way to
Because
go
also,
about it.
tell me this: what deal with the devil was made to make Godzilla look as good as he fucking does, or Kong in Skull Island? You know what I mean? Like, it's insane how great these monsters look.
Mm.
And look at Monarch on Apple TV right now. It's a TV show. Like, we have this series, um, and it's just there's I think doing it the right way where you don't have to spend a ton of money on that and doing that the special effects for the Titans, where it doesn't have to be like, you look at the budget for the Marvel movies and you're like, where the fuck is the money going? Like Ant-Man.
Yeah, I mean, it gets nuts, but I just so for Attack on Titan, I think it's tough because of budgeting, and I think it's tough because it's again there's a tough sell in animation. I think so. I think it's a miracle it got this far. So like in live action, it's a whole nother level of what you're really doing. So I'll fucking watch it. I love things like that, and if they up the gore factor, I think the proper way, and I hope that they go about this is that they turn it into a very horror thriller esque. I mean, obviously you have those action sequences with the ODM gear and all the fighting that happens, but especially when you're exploring that first season, I mean, it is just people terrified to their
Yeah.
core
Oh,
about
absolutely.
the outside world. And if you really
I mean,
exploit that factor, and that means all the time you don't have to show the Titans, you do some jump scares, you just play on the emotions of the cast. Like, I think it'd be a cool way to go about it. And I like
and
that would be a fun
that's
way to
the other
pull it
thing though
off.
too. What's great about Attack on Titan is not just the scenes where they're fighting the Titans or when the Titans come in and destroy everything. What makes it's the story, right? It's the moments that these characters have outside of the Titans. It's the fear behind their eyes. It's the conversations they have about, how do we deal with this? The people we've lost, you know? Um, even the scene in early on when Eren first turns into a Titan, right? And then when everybody surrounded him and Mikasa is standing there, like they're trying to defend him, and Armin's standing there and they're trying to defend him. Like, there's no monsters there. It's all just a bunch of
Mm.
people standing around with, weapons drawn or whatever. Fantastic scene. The courtroom scene in season one, right? And
Yes.
this
Yeah.
I'm
Mm.
talking all early stuff because this is the stuff we're gonna see. But like that courtroom scene where Levi basically beats the shit out of him, you know, and he doesn't transform, and that was what they were trying to show. Stuff like that. Those are also the moments that it's like, yeah, it's gonna be cool when the Titans come on screen and you see the armored Titan and everything, but we're gonna tell a story at the same time, and most of what you're gonna see is those moments. Um, And I
Yeah.
think even same thing with My Hero. Like, yeah, your budget is going to be there for like the special effects of when they're fighting and stuff,
I
but it's the moments between the cast and the characters.
I think My Hero is difficult for a different reason. It is a huge ensemble cast. I mean, what I praise My Hero about is that it has so many characters and it spends enough time getting you to
Yeah.
know every single one, because it would be so easy to just be like, here's Deku, here's Bakugo, these are the rest are background. They take full episodes to go into the other characters in their class, and I think it's a great way. And I think you might lose that in a live action. So I think it's difficult for that when you try to find a big ensemble cast like that and not give them equal screen time to Deku and Bakugo. You're not. It's
I
not going to
think,
happen. But to
and
get them as close as you can to that, it's not an easy pull.
I think it's funny you say that because it's one of the things that when I recommend My Hero, because My Hero gets a lot of hate for no reason. I think it's unwarranted. Um, I think it's a fantastic shonen. I think it's one of the best that's out there right now. Um,
Yeah, it's one of
and
my favorite currently running. So
and I think when it starts, like, and it's funny because you get like, and you know this because a lot of people who watch One Piece will tell you like, oh, just wait until the rest of the crew's there. Like it gets really good once the whole crew's there, and it's like, okay, well, watch My Hero. It's like, oh well, he's just a crybaby. It's like you haven't even met the cast yet. You don't meet the cast until he gets accepted into school, and
yeah,
it's like,
honestly, I've heard from a lot of people that they liked My Hero and that they thought it went down. I thought it was the actually exact opposite. I got into My Hero, I was like, because you hyped it up a lot. I was like, I don't. And eventually, I finally watched it, and I was like, "What is he? What is he even
and then
talking
it
about?"
picks
And
up.
I sat through like the first season, just like background noise, and then like I am so genuinely intrigued because it felt like as these characters grew up, the show grew up, and it
Yeah,
felt much more adult and mature, which is what I like out of animes. Like it was very kiddie, very much like, oh, you would have seen that airing right after Pokemon, like, and then it grows up like pretty quickly.
it's the build up. It's like we meet the characters. Okay, so you meet Deku, you meet Bakugo, and Bakugo's an asshole, right? When you first meet him, and Deku is a crybaby. Deku can't even lift 20 pounds when that show starts, and then like you get to the school festival, right? The sports
Mm,
festival, and like you meet Shoto. You like um the fight that Uraraka has against Bakugo. Great fucking, you know what I mean? Like that was such a good episode. You get to meet Shinso, who starts off as just a background character in one episode and grew. You know, there's so much there, and they do focus a lot. You get all of these characters get a lot of screen time and get a lot their
yeah.
moments to really shine.
Yeah, but that's what I think will be hard to pull off in live action.
Yeah,
Basically, the exact opposite of Attack on Titan. The effects, all that stuff. I don't think it's hard to pull off, especially with the superhero crazes going on right now.
yep.
And any one of them can be pulled off. It's just finding enough time for all those actors to get on screen, and especially if they, we don't know what kind of a project it is. If they
I
try
think
to
in a
do a
movie
movie,
it's harder.
I think it'd be an absolute failure.
Yeah,
I'd watch it, but I don't.
no, I
My
think a
hopes would be
series,
very low.
and I think that's the thing. I think what helps One Piece as well is the time it can take because it's a series.
Yeah.
It's hard to
Well,
squeeze. It's
most
hard to
other
squeeze that.
animes got a
Yeah.
movie, and some of the ones that we got recently. I mean, you talked about because yeah, we mostly got movies up until I guess probably like 2 or 3 years ago. We started getting anime adaptations in series, and we know what series did we get? We literally just Death Note
Yep.
didn't really hit,
Yeah.
and then Cowboy Bebop, which I actually didn't hate Cowboy Bebop. But I do see where people are coming from. I saw Cowboy Bebop a little bit, like episodically, like when I was a kid on
Hmm.
Toonami, but I never watched the series all the way through. So when the live action came out, I watched that before the series, and I actually really liked it. Then afterwards, I went back and watched the anime, and I liked it better. And I came to the realization that I didn't think it was a bad show by any means. I thought it actually did pretty goddamn good, but it just wasn't what they needed for Cowboy Bebop. So as a project, I liked it. For an adaptation, I didn't. But as a project as a whole, I'd watch it. I enjoyed it.
I don't know what triggered you talking about Cowboy Bebop. An older anime is getting a live action, and there is a trailer out for it, and that's Yu Yu Hakusho, um, which is an older series, but it is getting a live action, and it looks really good. Um, I think I don't have a problem with the adaptations and the live action adaptations. Sometimes it can draw people into then watching the anime or reading the manga and getting into the series. So adaptations are not inherently evil and bad. they can be good and they can be helpful for bringing more attention to the source material. But it just, like anything that I love, I want them done right. And I think, you know, you also in anime, for the most part, you get 1-to-1 adaptations from the manga to,
From the
the
manga to
anime,
the anime.
which is unlike any other adaptation we do, at least here in America. We don't
Everything
do
is very
1-to-1.
diverse.
Yeah,
um,
even when we're pulling directly from something like Civil War, it's not Civil War. That movie was everything but Civil War. Civil War and the fact that Cap and Iron Man fought each other, I guess.
it was great.
It was great,
Great, I loved it, but
very different
was
from the
it wasn't a
comic.
comic at all. I mean, as we talked about older anime adaptation, I mean, I know we also want to talk about what we would like to see get adapted. And as we're talking about older animes, one that I would actually like to see would be Trigun. I think Trigun would be a fun one to play
Which
around
got a
with,
new series
especially
recently.
yeah, it did. But I love Trigun. Ash as a character, I think, is amazing. It's fun, and I think you could have fun with it in a live action with the whole Midwestern theme and then
Yeah,
bringing in the sci-fi elements towards the end of it. I think something that could play really well on screen, because you could have so much fun with it, with that Western appeal, just like you did with One Piece being a pirate movie. That's a Western, so
yeah.
there's a different element to it that you can bring
It's a
in.
space western. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
would be a lot of fun. And I think Vash has this comedy to him as well that, like, even a lot of anime main characters have it. Like this kind of childish. Luffy has it. It's they're fun characters. Um, I would kind of in a different direction. An adaptation I would really like to see would be Samurai Champloo, which is way more grounded, way
mm,
more realistic. It would be a period piece, but I love the soundtrack. And we've talked about it before. Anime and hip hop kind of go hand in hand for some reason. I don't know why. Um, but I think it could be a really dope. You get really good choreography and a dope soundtrack. Like that's a
yeah,
that's a good
I think
story.
we owe that to Wu-Tang Clan. I think I think Japanese fight scenes and hip
Yeah,
hop have just been ingrained in us because of
RZA.
Wu-Tang.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
there's a ton. There's so many animes that I love. That this is the thing. Would I like to see them adapted? Yeah, but adapted well, because otherwise I'm gonna hate it, and I don't want to have to hate something that I love, like Full Metal, um, or
but
Fairy Tale
I think Full Metal, like another one that I think could get a proper adaptation.
as a
Um,
series, not a movie.
definitely as a series. Another one. I think the only hard part about that is the effects, and even then, like it's not the most like with special effects. Like it's not all that crazy
No, I think the
when it comes
practical
down to
effects
anime.
on the costuming, you know, like it's got a like for his arm, his leg, like you know what I mean. It's got the effects on that stuff's got to look real. Um,
Yeah, no, I would definitely go pretty practical
yeah,
on it. But like, it's such a great story. How could you
it
resist not
is.
doing it? I mean, it is the
It's
anime
also a
lover's favorite
heartbreaking story.
anime. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, show that dog on screen. Give me the live action dog lady.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to
I
see
want to
that.
see it.
I don't. And you know what's
I
crazy is like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood gives you that in like episode 3. Like it
yeah
jumps you in, and you're like, "What is happening?" Um,
yeah. But
so
yeah,
yeah,
Full Metal, another
I
one
don't.
that I think could get a
I would
proper
cry in the
adaptation.
movie theater. I think I would
Um,
like just or like at home watching it on TV, comfort of my own home. Um, but like there's so many moments in Full Metal that are just like really like they break your heart, and then they like twist the knife, you
yeah,
know?
well, when you get into like it explains the story pretty quickly, but when you look at the
Yeah,
outside, it's like this kid traveling with this suit of armor, being cops to then chase down these bad guys. It's pretty easy plot, and then again, it jumps you into it pretty quickly, telling you like, oh well, this kid actually has this robot arm because he tried to bring his dead mom back to life, and then he ended up
His
killing his
brother,
brother in the process, and then he tried to get his brother back, so he bonded his soul to this suit of armor, and now he's very depressed because he can't do anything but fight and walk around in a suit of armor, and now he lost his arm and leg, and he was a crippled nothing for years, and now he just learned to do
and now he's
this.
a dog of the military. But then you also, aside from like the emotional moment, you get, and it's an emotional moment as well, but on the opposite side is like when Mustang is fighting um, Envy
Yes.
and also Lust. You know, those moments are just so badass. Like Mustang is such a badass. Um, and it's very opposite of like, but it's also, it's a badass moment, and it pays off because of, you know earlier events in that, with him losing his friend. So like this, honestly, you can't get a better story in my opinion than what Full Metal did.
No, and that's why I think, yeah, you were right when you said it has to be a series, because I think the great thing about it is that there's no thing that you want to miss. Like if you miss a single
Yeah.
detail, it could be a detail that comes back later. So there's a lot that you don't want to miss out on. So it would definitely be a series. Doing a movie, I think, wouldn't do it justice. Then you're just kind of get the plain version of the story without the little nuances and character development.
Yep.
Um,
You don't really
so
get to spend any time on anything. You kind of just passing through the major plot points.
yeah, just randomly you'll just get this weird girl dog. You won't even be sad. You'll just be confused about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what is this? Who is he? And you won't care. Uh, I There are some other anime related things that are out, and Netflix is a big. Um, they're big on this. They're the ones that have been pushing out a lot of the anime stuff, which I don't have a problem with. We are getting an animated series, or an anime series based on John Wick. They announced that they're doing a Terminator anime, which sounds cool. And then there was the Scott Pilgrim
Yeah, Scott
anime.
Pilgrim recently got one. Haven't been able to catch it yet. It looks interesting. I mean, I like the original Scott Pilgrim movie. With the concept of it works very well as an anime. I mean, I've never really thought about it before, but it's
Yeah.
very exaggerated. It's kind of shown like a
Well, are there
comic book
animated
format.
parts of that movie?
Yeah, yeah, little animated parts, and
I
like
never
things
got
that are
into
just
that
also
movie.
very exaggerated. Like the first boyfriend busts through the wall and is like flying towards him. Scott Pilgrim, like it's such an exaggerated movie. It's like one of those 2000s cult classic type of deals. Like it wasn't made to look the best, but like it's one of those things that you love to love. So it works very well, I think, in anime. So I'm excited to check that one out. Um,
But
John
Netflix is
Wick, I think,
also
would be cool as well. Like just like the fight scenes,
it.
the fight choreography you could do
It
in
makes
animation
sense.
compared to live action
Yeah,
would be pretty dope. Terminator, I mean, it could work. I'm sure it can work. I just
I don't
having a
see
hard
why
time
not.
envisioning it a little bit.
I
Maybe it's
mean,
because I just see a hard time seeing those characters differently. I think that's more what it is. Um, seeing it
it would be
other
interesting to see what direction they go with the Terminator, and like where's the timeline and where does this take place and stuff like that. Um, but I don't see why it couldn't work. Um, we talk a lot about things being adapted into live action, and I don't see a reason why anything can't be adapted into animation.
No, I think it's definitely
It's
an easier transition to go from live
yeah,
action to animation. I think where I struggle with it is that there's so many things in Terminator that are so iconic. Seeing them in any type of different format is really odd. Not that it would be
yeah,
bad, not that but it would just be an adjustment to my brain. Like
yeah.
not like the design of the characters is so specific with those practical effects that look so crisp for the time that seeing it in
Hmm.
animation, I just feel like would just look so different.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, you're so used to seeing the robots in live action and everything. Yeah, it's gonna be a
yeah,
little.
I think there's just a certain amount of iconicness that it would not that it again be bad. It would probably take me like just an episode, but like it would feel weird to see them on the cover page. Like, oh, I guess, all right, I guess that's what they look like in animation. I don't know.
I
Um,
think
Especially if
there's
Arnold's not voicing that fucking robot.
yeah,
That'll
yeah.
be really weird.
Um, I'm sure they'll model it after him though.
Yeah, 100%.
Netflix also did Castlevania years ago, and they just came out with a sequel series, Nocturne. Um, and it works. Like it's a video game that was turned into an anime. It works. I could see them doing more of that. Also, actually, I guess not so much in anime, but just stuff being put into animation. Like League of Legends did it with Arcane, and it won a
Yeah,
ton
that's
of
true.
awards.
They did. And
Like,
when you think about going into anime, I think video games to animation is a very easy transition because even if you look at the classics, I mean, Mario and Sonic were nothing but video games at the start, and their games
yeah,
got more personality, and then eventually they got shows. If you remember their shows from the 2000s,
yeah.
and then Mario just got a movie, another animated movie, and Sonic has been. I mean, they're live action movies, but still, I
There are
mean,
just things you can't do in live action, and that's why animation works
yeah,
because
but
you're not bound by any actual real life physics or rules or laws. You
but
can
I'm
do
just saying,
anything
and
you
when you
want.
think about it, we don't haven't gotten too many video game to anim like it's not all that common to go
No,
from video game to another format, especially when you think about just a cartoon. People would love to kind of just jump them right into live action, but it's a pretty easy transition to go to a cartoon. I mean, I think I mentioned it before. Like, fucking Disney, get on it. Turn Kingdom Hearts into an anime. It would be so easy for you. It'd be so
the
great.
story is just a bit complicated, but yeah,
No, but you turn it into an anime. You're the only person that has license of all your characters. You're the only person that
that's
can
true.
do it.
That's
Um,
true. I just thought of an anime that could work in live action. That could be cool. Sword
hmm,
Art.
that'd be fun. It's pretty practical. I believe that
Yeah.
it like enough to where and where the scenes that aren't they're to the extreme also to where it's not practical enough to where it's so much I think going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to where I think that it's not the middle ground where it's like it'd be hard to do either way. Da, da,
And
da.
also like the exaggeration aspect of it. It's like, well, it makes they're playing video game characters. They're in a video
Yeah.
game, so it's like, yeah, this is like the exaggerate. Like you can still manage that. It could be a cool one. I'll pose a question to you
All right.
because there's not a ton of examples of it, but anime, not
Hmm.
all of them are great. Just doesn't. Some anime start off really good, and then they deviate from the manga sometimes, and they get not so good. Blue Exorcist had come back and decided to kind of redo the ending. They cut off. They said, only watch episodes 1 through 17 of the original series, forget the rest, and then pick up this new series. What series would you, if you could, kind of revisit? And not necessarily as a remake, but as like a continuation. If we said, all right, you know what? Forget the ending. Or what anime would you just completely redo if given the opportunity?
Uh, I mean, if I have choice, um, I think I know what you're gonna say. I have two different ones that kind of come to mind. One maybe a little controversial. Another one not so controversial. Um, Both kind of in the same realm when it comes to style of how they do things of not being very action packed. I love when an anime can catch my attention without throwing a shit ton of action in my face because it just shows me what you're doing with all of the different aspects of life and story. Um, so, Neverland and Death Note are two animes that when I first saw them got my attention immediately. I mean, the work that they do with story. I mean, with Promise Neverland being the fear and the emotions of the kids, and then just just the mystery and the suspense that you feel in Death Note. With the will this happen? Will it not happen? Will they catch him? Will they not? Like all that factoring in and the character development is so great that I think both of them, while both of them I think are still great animes, could be done better. Promise Neverland season 1 automatically skyrocketed into like my top 5 animes for how much that I loved it. And then it came back with possibly the worst season 2 in anime history. So the follow up was just not there. The tone was completely different. It went from this again emotional like mystery with playing on the fears to like just something that was completely different. The tone was completely off. It didn't feel like it was the same. So I think that was a complete miss. Like if you haven't seen Promised Neverland and you want to, just watch the first season. You'll get enough closure to where you don't need to see the second one.
Yep.
And the second one will make you hate the first season. So yeah, definitely a redo on Promised Neverland. And Death Note, I think, is one of those things where you kind of break it up into 3 parts, where you have Kira versus L, and then you have Light working with L against Kira, air quotes if you're on audio, and then you have Light working with N. What's the last one? I forget. L's
The two
replacement.
kids,
Yeah, I forget.
that last part that
Yeah, I
everybody
forget their
hates.
names. Yeah, I hate that part.
But it's part of the
So
story. Like,
yeah,
it's unavoidable. Yeah.
yeah, it's unavoidable because that's just how they did it. But I really hate like if you cut it off after the first 40 episodes, great. Like honestly, I think Death Note is really something that should have been like 3 seasons instead of just one long ass season. And it's such an easy breakup, like between 20 episodes. I believe to 20 or 15, I forget. But yeah, I would 100% either end it at when L dies because that is such a clean break right there at like episode 40, or just completely change those last 20 episodes. I hate it. It to me, it takes the perfect anime and ruins it because Death Note is still like in my top 10, but it just makes it not number 1.
It's,
Like,
well, you know what it is too, is that you build up so much of this battle between Light and L,
and then you just replace him with a
and then
knockoff.
yeah, and it doesn't. It's like the
The
connection's not
chemistry's not
there.
there, and
I don't care about these new kids. I don't care about these young kids that are coming in and trying to stop Kira. No, I don't care. I don't care anymore.
yeah. And also
Um,
at that point, so like if L beats Light by episode 40, I am like, oh shit, let's go, L. When I can't even remember I think N. I think it's N. I don't remember.
it might be.
When he beats Light, I'm like, fuck, Light should have won and killed half the world. Like
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
care. I didn't want this kid to win. He was just annoying. It didn't
I
work
get
for
it.
me. So again, they did proper, but proper I still think wasn't right. That's the one time you should really deviate to me. Um, but enough of my rant of 2 of my favorite animes being ruined. What's your answer? What anime would you either redo or go back and do a continuation of?
I have 3. Um, I would love for these two. I would love a redo on Soul Eater. Not that Soul Eater's terrible. Soul Eater is still really good.
The finale is
It's the ending. It's the ending,
awful.
and
It
it
feels
needs.
so camp, like for something that's so dark. The ending feels so campy and predictable, and it just feels like nothing
And
happened.
there's still a lot of really good stuff. So instead of just like trying to say, oh, well, watch the first 60. No, let's just redo it. If I had to pick a studio to do Soul Eater, I would probably pick UFO Table, who does Demon Slayer. I
Mm.
think their fight sequences and everything, what we see in Demon Slayer, would be really, really dope. Especially that style that they have for Soul Eater. One of my favorite series, and whenever I recommend to people, I tell them to only watch season 1. Anything after that is hot garbage, and just not worth it. Tokyo Ghoul. First 12 episodes, season 1. Those 12 episodes are some of the best I've ever seen. Um, I could see you doing a continuation if you wanted to say, we're going to pick up from the end of season 1, because it deviates drastically after that in season 2. So if we said, we're going to pick up from season 1, or because there's still so much after that was done, especially with the sequel series, and you want to just redo it, I have no problem with it either. I would love to see, especially with Attack on Titan being done, I would love to see Mappa pick up Tokyo Ghoul and just, kind of redo it. Chainsaw Man is fantastic. There is this level of darkness and maturity to Tokyo Ghoul that I think fits with, Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man and Attack on Titan that I think Mappa could really do an amazing job with. Any other series that like a continuation of the way that Blue Exorcist did, I think is a little bit trickier, but Dead Man Wonderland is another underrated.
It's a great one.
It's never got finished. It's just kind of like it ends on a cliffhanger and that's it. Like we're just left in limbo. Another one that the same thing happened was Ajin, which I know you never got into just because of the animation style. It's leans way heavier on the CGI. But like season 2 ended and it's like, well, what next? And it's just never gotten picked up. So I would love to see continuations of like those series and maybe promote them and maybe get some new fans. To these to them. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely agree with at bare minimum the Soul Eater one. I remember just being very disappointed with the ending of Soul Eater.
Yeah.
Not even that the rest leading up to it was bad. Like you would really only have to change like the last maybe 4 episodes, 5 episodes. Like it's really not that much. That goes
It's the
wrong
final arc.
with Soul.
Yeah, it's just that final arc.
That goes wrong with Soul Eater. So for sure, definitely continuation on Soul Eater. And a little earlier we are talking about how Netflix is really killing the game right now when it comes to animes and what they've been putting out again. They just put out Scott Pilgrim. I mean, they've been putting out a lot of good animes that you wouldn't expect from a studio that doesn't specialize in anime.
I think prior to Crunchyroll, the Crunchyroll and Funimation merger, Netflix was getting in on anime, and they had a lot of anime on there. There was a place to watch a lot of stuff, and you mentioned Seven Deadly Sins earlier. That's a Netflix original.
Yeah, and it's a little controversial of what people think of it. I personally like it. I mean, I'm not saying it's the best story out there, but it's one that keeps me intrigued all the way through. Keeps your eyes glued to the screen, keeps you invested in the characters. I like Seven Deadly Sins. And one that's recently came out that I'd love to give a recommendation for is Blue Eyed Samurai. Came out by the time this episode comes out, it'll probably be a little old. They probably will stop pushing it on the title page. But amazing. Quick spoiler-free rundown. It's about a half Asian, half white woman in Japan that is pretending to be a boy, to be a samurai, so that she can seek revenge on all of the white men that were in Japan at the time of her birth because they raped her mother and made her basically the devil in the eyes of the entire country. It's
intriguing.
It takes the white savior complex that we get a lot in American media and Japanese media all over the world does the white savior complex, to where someone of a different race comes into the country, usually white, and they save the people and they become the best at everything. This takes such a bastardization take on it, where it takes this person who's ashamed of their white heritage and becomes good at the thing that Japanese people are good at, to then kind of redeem themselves for it, and to seek revenge. Like, so powerful, so good. The action sequences, another one, it's pretty gory. There's full frontal nudity in it. Heads up for anybody that wants to watch it. It's got some crazy fight scenes. The choreography in that is amazing. The animation is so cool and fun. Like, it almost looks like just like cut out paper moving on a page. Like, she seems just so rigid and cool in the fact of how things work. A rec that I definitely want to throw out there, especially one I want to throw out there on camera to make sure that you watch it.
Me?
Yes,
I
you.
know, I have
Yes,
to.
you.
I think if anybody listening, if anybody is looking for anime recommendations, you know, feel free to hit me up. I recommend anime all the time to people, and I also highly recommend people, watch the big ones. Yeah, watch the big shonens. They are great. Like, yes, and Naruto, One Piece, they're long, but they're fantastic. There's a reason why they're popular. There's a reason why they're long. The story has sold, and it sits with people. But there's a lot of other really good series out there, and don't be afraid. And this goes with anything, but don't be afraid to just watch something, and if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. Like I said at the top, My Hero gets a lot of hate for no reason, and I don't care what anybody says. I'll be the first to tell you it's one of my favorite series. And I keep up with the manga, so I know where that story is. I know where it's going, and I fucking love it. Fairy Tail is another favorite of mine, and it's a shonen that gets a lot of hate for some reason, but I don't think it's that bad. I don't think I don't think it deserves the hate that it gets. So branch out, watch different things, and if you're looking for something that's a little bit different or new, feel free to hit us up, and we can definitely try to steer you in a different direction, or uh, funny, serious, sad, action packed. You can watch the dub of Ghost Stories, which I recommend just because it's hilarious.
All right. For sure about that. And on that note, how about you guys? Like he said, go in our DMs, go in our comments. Let us know if you like our anime recommendations. Maybe check out Blue Eye Samurai. Maybe you want to hear more recommendations for us. Maybe we can give you more recommendations on the anime side, on the movie side, everything. Let us know what you think about the up and coming live actions that'll be coming out. And just go in our comments and our DMs as well and tell us what you want to see adapted. What animes do you love that you would love to see uh, going into live TV? So thank you for tuning into this episode of the Beer and Skittles podcast, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.